By the time you hit my age, odds are you've been touched by cancer, either yourself or someone close. By age 85, every second Australian will develop it. But what if I were to tell you there's a medicine that may double your chance of survival and cause your own body to attack the cancer? It's exercise, but not as you know it.
I'm here at a clinic where, in a groundbreaking move, people are being prescribed specific targeted exercises designed for their own tumour and treatment on the same day as they get their chemo or radiation.
The evidence is so strong now that the cancer patients deserve this medicine.
You've literally this minute come from chemo.
Yep, straight from the hospital to here.
In this program, we'll show you what professionally prescribed exercise is doing for a group of Australians with cancer.
It was the best thing I ever did.
It made me feel better. I felt better at the end of each session.
And presents startling new research that reveals the secret of how it works.
The muscles are producing chemicals and they're actually destroying tumour cells.
The trial is still ongoing, but the early results are so impressive.
The doctors think it will be a game changer.
This is our exercise medicine clinic here at the Cancer Care Centre. As far as I know, this is a world first to have that close to the actual chemotherapy, radiation therapy suites.
The man behind this audacious new program, which includes a gym built inside the Cancer Treatment Centre, is Professor Robert Newton.
To head radiotherapy today.
Director of the renowned Exercise Medicine Research Institute here in Perth, Western Australia.
A lot of our research is actually driven by the oncologists because they're working with the patients and they see what's happening. And they came to us and said, look, why are we actually waiting until these patients are so deconditioned and they're feeling so unwell, and then we try and rehabilitate them? Wouldn't it be a way better, much more effective approach if we actually intervene with the exercise at the same time that they commence their therapy?
At the time, this team were already at the forefront of providing exercise programs for patients once they'd finished cancer treatment, with good scientific reason.
We now have a growing number of research studies showing that if people hit a certain level of physical activity, which is relatively modest, to be honest, then they'll more than double their chances of surviving their cancer. In other words, they halve their risk of dying.
But the idea to start the exercise program at the same time as starting punishing cancer treatment, well, that's still pretty radical.
It was a little bit of a step into the unknown because chemotherapy, as most people would know, is a very difficult journey for the patient. And to put exercise on top of that, you know, is that a good idea? Will they tolerate it? Will it be safe?
What about the muscle strength? How are you going with the gym work? To actually go against that mould and say to people, right, up you get, you're having chemo today, that's fine. Now we want you to get on an exercise bike and now we want you to start doing some weights. Because it is a new concept. Yeah, of course we're all nervous about it.
Okay, 2 more reps, Margaret, and then you can have a rest. So push, push, push all the way.
Convinced, though, they had a great team of oncologists and exercise physiologists on board, they began. One of their first recruits was Natalie.
I was diagnosed with breast cancer on the 11th of February last year. It was already spread through my milk ducts in my breast, on my left breast. It was quite serious and it was quite advanced, so we needed to get on top of it quite quickly.
Hello. Here you go. Yeah, ready? All right, you ready?
I've got a 4 and a 6-year-old and a busy husband at work, and it just turned our lives upside down. Absolutely, upside down.
Natalie knew to brace herself for heavy-duty chemo, but she never expected to be asked to exercise.
At the time, I wasn't very fit and healthy anyways, so why not try it, you know? And so I did. I went along and pretty much straight away as soon as I started chemo. Joined up, got a phone call, had to commit.
It works like this. On chemo or radiation days, patients book in here to the in-house exercise clinic. In between, 3 times a week, they come here to Exercise Medicine HQ at Edith Cowan University.
You've had that reconstruction, so we don't...
All under the direction of a team of expert exercise physiologists.
Effort, you breathe out. When I first met Natalie, she was struggling quite hard with her chemotherapy. It was hitting her hard, but she's such an awesome woman, determined to exercise whenever she could.
Up and down.
Another 3 reps.
It's the exercise physiologist's job to tailor the program for each cancer patient's special circumstances.
Keep that breath going, it's really important. Natalie got some really bad peripheral neuropathy in her feet, so it really hurt to walk. So obviously the treadmill was out of the question, and so we moved her onto a recumbent bike.
Still, as Natalie was one of the first, many were understandably nervous about whether it would ultimately prove too much, including Natalie's kids.
I didn't think I should do it. They were a bit scared because I looked so frail and I looked so bold and I looked different, and I was getting my gym gear on and dropping them off to school and off I'd go. And they'd, "You're going to gym again, Mum?" After chemo, yeah. But when they'd see me come home still going and not laying on the couch and not having some of those symptoms that typical patients get, I think they could see the benefit.
That's it, good. Natalie often dragged herself in, but by the end of the session, she'd be feeling so much better than when she came in. And that's a huge change in an hour, let alone over 6 months.
And as time went on, everyone started to see the benefits.
And believe it or not, it did. It made me feel better. I felt better at the end of each session. I walked out with that extra bit of energy, a little bit less fatigue. The nausea was curbed or kept at the same level.
3/4 of the way through her punishing treatment, Natalie even managed a 4-kilometre fundraising walk.
It was hard and I was tired. Nobody wanted me to do it, my husband including. Said, it's just gonna be too much. And I just did it, and it was amazing that you could do it.
Everyone, including her oncologist, were very surprised with how well Natalie went through her treatments, because she was going through particularly hard chemotherapy regimens to try and kill this cancer.
But it wasn't just Natalie who was doing well.
I'm probably surprised by how good people's blood counts are. I'm surprised by their well-being, by how well they feel on chemo.
Anecdotally, all the patients on the exercise program seem to be getting less of the expected side effects of chemo, particularly less nausea and fatigue.
I can be very fatigued, but if I make the effort and have even the walk, then it lifts my energy.
It's been pretty good, actually. The chemo's not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Come in. This is where our DEXA scanner is. I just want your head at this end here and your feet at that far end, please.
But the evidence that blew the clinicians away came from this machine, the DEXA, which was used to track the fat, muscle and bone composition of each of the patients in the trial.
So how much decline do you typically see in muscle mass when people go on chemo?
Somewhere between 10 and 15%, depending on the length of duration that they're actually undergoing chemotherapy. That's the normal, that's expected.
Yet in the 38 patients who've gone through the exercise program, that muscle wastage was almost completely blocked. Some even gained.
If we take Natalie, for example, she's actually, which is quite astounding, increasing her muscle mass over the course of her chemotherapy. And that's just a really fantastic outcome, because it not only improves their health and function, but it likely improves their capability to complete the full course of chemotherapy. That means they're much more likely to survive. We're really excited about this. I believe it will actually change the management of cancer patients.
To understand quite how extraordinary this is, let's visit someone who had a very different experience of chemo.
It's a science show 2065. Hello, I'm Robin Williams.
This is Robin Williams, known to ABC Radio National listeners as the legendary voice of The Science Show. And in the interests of full disclosure, he's also my long-term partner. You ready for your trip down memory lane?
I think so.
18 months ago, Robin was told he had 2 large tumours in his bowel. Do you remember when that was?
Oh, dancing.
Yeah. That was the day after you got your diagnosis.
The next day, the treatment steam train started.
Gradually, you stop feeling like yourself. Your body is not yours to control. You kind of get smaller. Literally smaller, of course, because the effect of the chemo was, for me, surprisingly, for them as well, devastating. I was then with a colostomy bag and I was losing weight.
Along with the weight loss came damage to the peripheral nerves, which meant he kept bumping into things, and a rapid loss of Robin's ability to run, which he'd previously done daily.
At one point, I remember I couldn't even walk around the block.
How much weight did you lose in the end?
I was just over 85 kilos when I started, and I was 59, under 59 at the, if you like, the base of the experience.
And
It's a walking cadaver.
Yeah, that's why I took a photo.
Robin was hospitalised for 5 weeks, and his chemo had to be terminated 2 months early. Though Radio National listeners will be pleased to note, he still insisted on making The Science Show.
The first ever computer program. I did things from the hospital bed. We never missed a program. It is a personal.
Robin's experience was particularly bad, but it does help show why the fact the patients on the exercise trial are maintaining their muscle mass is so significant. A scientific paper is currently being prepared.
The benefit in terms of muscle mass is absolutely extraordinary, because we know that there's no pharmaceutical intervention that can actually stop that decline in muscle mass. The only thing which will do that is highly targeted, prescribed, tailored exercise.
It certainly appears as though something here is working, which begs the question, how? One likely mechanism is pretty straightforward. It's all about blood flow. One of the troubles of getting chemo into a tumour is that tumours often have a really poor blood supply. But exercise increases blood flow, potentially allowing more chemical to get inside the tumour where it's needed.
That's why I believe that the greatest effectiveness of exercise is when you actually exercise either immediately before or after the actual session of receiving the chemotherapy. Because either before or after, you're still influencing the circulation of blood into the tumour, so you have to be delivering more of the chemotherapy agent, targeting the specific cancer cells.
But the science gets way cooler than that. In the last 3 years, some fascinating discoveries have been made about what exercise does to the immune system. Our bodies are making potential cancer cells all the time, but our immune system regularly finds them and destroys them. Crucial to our tumour defence force are so-called natural killer cells. They're one of the only cell types that can recognise threats generated by our own bodies and call in an attack. It's one of life's great mysteries why some cells slip past our defences and begin to grow.
So our own immune system is still one of the best ways to fight the cancer. The trouble with chemo is, at the same time as it's poisoning our tumour cells, it's also wrecking our immune system.
Which brings us to a small but remarkable study conducted in Sweden and published in 2013. A group of 10 average healthy young men were exercised on a bike for 60 minutes. Their blood was taken before the exercise and also straight after. The before and after bloods were then spun down to extract the clear serum, and pored over laboratory lines of prostate cancer cells to see if they would grow. Incredibly, the serum taken straight after exercise suppressed the cancer cell growth by 30%.
That particular study is landmark because what it has done is it's woken up the scientific community to say there is something produced during exercise systemically. So the muscles are producing chemicals which are going to all parts of the body and they're actually destroying tumour cells.
Then, in early 2016, another study in Denmark gave us an even clearer picture of what's going on. The study involved mice with cancer. They were split into two groups. One was given unlimited access to a running wheel, the other was not. And just to be thorough, the researchers tried this experiment in 5 different kinds of mouse cancer models, from lung cancer to liver cancer to melanoma. You can see clearly here what happened. These are from the lung cancer mice. The black stain is cancer. Look at the difference when they've exercised. Across all 5 experiments, exercise reduced tumour growth by 60 to 70%. Then, when they looked inside the tumour cells, they saw this. The tumours of the exercising mice were chock full of natural killer cells.
Now that's amazing. What is changing in the body through exercise that makes these natural killer cells more active, be able to seek out the tumour and then attach to the tumour and destroy it?
The result would be striking enough, but the Danish researchers went much further. They were able to demonstrate how exercise did it, what sort of signal it was releasing to make the natural killer cells attack the cancer. First signal, adrenaline. Adrenaline, produced during exercise, activates the natural killer cells to be released into the bloodstream. They're now primed for surveillance and looking for a target. That information then comes via the muscles. Exercise causes muscles to release a chemical signal called interleukin-6. Interleukin-6 not only seeks out the tumour cells directly, informing them to cease and desist, it also tells the natural killer cells what to target.
There are many other physiological mechanisms involved, but this study shows so clearly exactly how exercise can upregulate the immune system and make it better at fighting cancer.
The exciting thing is that it's actually the body generating its own chemotherapy, if you like. It's generating its own anti-cancer drugs.
But is all exercise the same, or can some treat specific cancers better than others? Lee has prostate cancer.
Well, I was put on an anti-testosterone drug that, of course, depleted my testosterone down to nothing. What normally happens there is, from a man's perspective, you grow boobs, you put on weight, you become lethargic.
The problem with anti-androgen therapy, whilst it's fantastic for slowing the progression of prostate cancer, it does have a lot of side effects, and one of the key ones is that it actually causes a dramatic loss of bone. And so these men rapidly become osteoporotic, they develop osteoporosis. So we had to do something to try and address that.
7 years ago, Professor Newton's team took a group of men who were on anti-androgen therapy and prescribed them 3 different types of exercise. One group of participants did aerobic exercise only. Another group did aerobic exercise plus resistance training. The third group did resistance work plus jumping. Impact training. Lee was assigned this treatment.
So this was quite radical, to have men in their 70s and some in their 80s actually doing jumping, bounding and skipping.
I didn't want to do it to start with. I thought, nah, strike. Anyway, I decided that I'd go ahead and try it. It was the best thing I ever did.
How was that?
That was hard.
To everyone's surprise, for the men who were doing aerobic and resistance, it didn't help the osteoporosis at all. They still lost 3% of their bone mineral density in 6 months. But in the jumping group, the bone loss was prevented.
This is actually Lee, so this is his data. And what we see here, his bone density is actually improved to 1.170.
Legs, then arms. Legs.
It gave me a new lease of life. I met a whole bunch of fantastic people. I got healthy, I got fit. Probably the best thing that ever happened to me, getting cancer, as strange as that may sound.
It was only the combination of resistance exercise and the impact loading that totally obliterated the bone loss. So that was a world first and an outstanding outcome.
It also showed clearly how important it is to know which exercise to prescribe for each condition. The results of this study, presented at the Australasian Prostate Cancer Conference in 2011, were so significant they changed the national guidelines for prostate cancer treatment in the US and Australia.
It was so positive.
If we hadn't have all gone on that journey, we would never have met and formed
And we would
friendship.
never have gone to the gym.
And we would
Where are you?
As Natalie and her fellow survivors show, it does seem we're on the cusp of a turning point, a shift away from some vague recommendation to exercise toward a more sophisticated, targeted exercise prescription for cancer patients. And while Rob's team will likely be one of the first in the world to publish their findings on exercise during cancer treatment, at least 2 other teams we're aware of in Sweden and Denmark are running similar trials. There are also individual oncologists here who are starting to prescribe it, and more trials are underway of patients with different types and stages of cancer.
The evidence is so strong now that the cancer patients deserve this medicine. It's a very powerful medicine. It actually increases their survival and it has no side effects. So what we need now is for actually the medical and health professions to embrace it and actually make it a integral component of the overall management of the cancer patient.
Go, mister. Woo!
Natalie, having just finally been given the all clear, can only agree.
I just know it did. I just know it helped. Helped me bounce back. It helped me get back on my feet quicker too. Yeah, absolutely. It meant everything. Yeah, I'm alive.
Good boy, BB.
It is a great result for Natalie. However, at this point, we do need to stress this is a limited and ongoing scientific trial. Anyone with cancer should seek professional medical advice before embarking on an exercise program.
I'd advise someone with cancer who'd like to exercise, who doesn't have access to a program such as this, find an exercise physiologist.
Let's hold on.
When you have cancer, you need an exercise physiologist. They know about the drugs and all the different things that can be going on in your life when you're having serious chemotherapy.
And even after chemo is over, exercise can be crucial, as I experienced firsthand last year with my own partner, Robin Williams.
This is the day I dragged you into hospital.
Ah, not exactly Mr. Atlas, really, is it?
Months after his treatment finished, Robin still wasn't recovering from the fatigue and nerve damage, until finally he tracked down an exercise specialist.
We there yet?
Started his own targeted program and turned things around.
That's great. I'm working on rotating that. When Robin first did this exercise, he was literally falling flat on his face.
Weight training, treadmills, you name it. Boxing even. Me. Hadn't done that since I was 13.
That's the way. Trump.
Everyone's cancer experience is different, but appropriate exercise before, during or after treatment seems to substantially improve our odds.
And that's 2 months later.
The zombie rises.
Long may the remission last.
Hmm.